Welcome to 12 Scholars, a brand new podcast dedicated to personal development. In this first series, we meet 12 inspiring people, all with a bias for being proactive. To learn more about personal development and how you can take your performance to the next level, visit our website and click the button to subscribe. In this week's show, we meet Geoff Liberman. Geoff is a successful businessman with a track record in growing businesses and helping others become successful too.
You know, you have to push yourself if you want to be a champion in anything. You've got to go that extra mile. I've lived my life by a short 2-word saying, which is, if it is to be, it is up to me. Liberman, yeah. Liberman. It's not got an E in it. A lot of people say Lieberman, but Liberman. It's just that there's a gynecologist called Lieberman. Definitely not a gynecologist.
Geoff is the perfect guest for 12 Scholars. He's passionate about personal development and has spent a lifetime teaching others. Geoff's story is one from rags to riches. From growing up in a council house in Prestwich, North Manchester, he's travelled the world and now lives in the leafy suburbs of Hale, near Altrincham. One of the things that differentiates Geoff from his early peers was how he studied successful people and businesses, long before it was fashionable to call it entrepreneurship. He started his first business aged 25, and over the past 3 decades has built and sold many businesses. Today, he's co-founder and director at RDS, a specialist in helping companies reinvest their finances. So in this episode, we visit Geoff to discuss being proactive and what he's learned by studying successful people. Before we talk about your backstory, I recently learned that we both went to the same high school.
We did, yeah.
Perhaps you could describe what it was like going to Hayes Boys' School in the 1960s.
It was fantastic, actually. Really enjoyed it. Had lots of friends there. I enjoyed learning. I wasn't great at certain subjects, but I was good at maths. Wasn't a great sports person or in English. So long ago, it's probably, 50 years ago now. So, but yeah.
And how would you describe family life growing up?
It was, again, very happy. We were poor. We lived in a 2-bedroom council house, and there was 5 children. So there was myself and my 3 brothers, so 4 boys in 2 sets of bunk beds, and my sister in a single bed, and my mum and dad in the other bedroom. But we never looked at ourselves as being poor. We all got on very well. We were a very loving family. I remember our treat back then was staying up on a Friday night watching Bonanza, and I think we used to get a tube of Roundtree's fruit gums. That was our highlight of the week. But yeah, they were good times.
Tell me, what were you doing outside school? Because I know your parents had a passion for dancing at the time.
They did. My father was in the RAF, so they always wanted to dance. So we all started learning to dance at a very young age. I was probably 4 or 5, and I ended up being good at it, and I enjoyed it. So I competed in the World Championships and came 5th there. I used to go to competitions every weekend, and I think it taught me a lot of discipline as well. It taught me a lot of social skills, communicating, because again, I was very young back then, and a lot of the classes, they were adults and things, but it does teach you certain disciplines. I think that's the thing. I used to go 4 or 5 nights a week, and then at the weekend dancing competitions. I was on Come Dancing a couple of times on television representing the Northwest. That's probably my claim to fame.
What did you do after school then, after your school days?
After school, I actually started working. Boutiques were just opening, so for a short time, when I was 15, I left school at 15, I started working in a boutique in Manchester called Pygmalion. And then I started working at another boutique called Jeffrey's. And then I got a job in a dance school. It was an American franchise called Arthur Murray's. And I was teaching dancing there for 10 years. And then I got my own dance school in Altrincham. And then I partnered up with a Canadian gentleman and an American gentleman and ended up with 4 dance schools, 2 in London, 1 in Birmingham and 1 in Manchester.
How did you go from the dance schools through to where you are today? And what are the key themes throughout?
Well, I think again, with the dancing, when I started teaching, you learn a lot of teaching skills. You understand about patience, giving recognition, encouraging people. I've taught people to dance that have been blind, that have been deaf, One of the things that I've learned over the years is somebody can have a lot of natural ability, but if they've not got the desire, they won't be as good as somebody that maybe doesn't have that much natural ability, but they've got a strong desire to learn to dance or anything, I think, in life. And it's those people, if the people have got the desire, then I think, and I think there's a lot of skills learnt from teaching anything that you can pass on to business to teach people to help them employ themselves and run their own business, really.
And looking back, why do you think personal development was so important to you?
I remember at a very young age when I was in the dance school, we used to be taught, again, it was an American, I think they were quite ahead of us on all this personal development stuff. And they used to talk about the conscious mind of the subconscious. And, if somebody came into your house and threw a garbage can with a load of rubbish in your living room, you wouldn't like it. And you've got to protect your subconscious mind that people don't come and give you a lot of negatives and that you can't do this and it's not going to work and you're not good enough and you come from a council house and I had all these things, go and get a proper job when I started my own business. And you're going to have this little guy that protects your subconscious mind for what he lets into your subconscious, I think. And I learned that probably in my late teens, early 20s, and it was just something that fascinated me about personal development, goal setting, time management, giving recognition, encouraging people. I have all my diaries so the children can look through what the dad did, and in there at the front of each of my diaries, I've got all my goals written down each year. And so you can look back 10 years and you can see what you've achieved. And I'm a strong believer in if you see and believe it, you can make it happen.
And how often would you open those diaries and revisit them?
Every day. Every day I would be... Back then we didn't have online calendars or on our phones. So they're Collins A4 diary. And it's, I was always taught that use a pencil because things can change. So it gets messed up if you do pen and then you've got to start using Tipp-Ex. So I use my diary every day. I work by my diary. That was the way that I suppose I looked at it like there was a Geoff 1 and Geoff 2, a little bit of a schizophrenic there. But kind of Geoff 1 was the boss and Geoff 2 worked for Geoff 1. And the way that Geoff 1, the boss, checked on Geoff 2 was what he'd done in his diary. How many phone calls has he made? How many appointments has he sat on? How many meetings has he had, etc., etc. So I could look through the diary and it was always, it was a double page that I could see the whole week and I could look and either give myself a pat on the back or a kick up the backside, whichever was needed.
You describe yourself as a normal, everyday person that just went that extra mile and fed your mind with the right information that gave the power to make massive action for a few years. What's your earliest memory of going that extra mile?
I think you taught that at a very young age when I was in the dancing. You had to go flat out. You might be, when you're dancing at Blackpool in the championships, you could be, you dance about 4 miles an hour and it's, you've got tail suits on and all these clothes and you're hot and you're tired and you have to push yourself if you want to be a champion in anything. You've got to go that extra mile. So I think I learnt that basic skill in the dancing, and I think it's the same in business really. If you're willing to go the extra mile for your clients, for your customers, for your staff, for your employees, then what goes around comes around, and I think they'll go the extra mile for you. I remember Zig Ziglar once said that there was a horse race and it was so many inches, I don't know, let's say it was 750,000 inches, this horse race. And sometimes the winner, the difference between first place and second place, you could win $1 million or pounds at first place, and second place you might get 50,000, but the difference could be just a short nose, so it could be just 1 inch. So to me, going that extra mile it's just that 1 inch that can make the difference in a horse race of many, many furlongs.
What do you precisely mean by taking massive action for just a few years?
Well, in my mind, I think if you take no action, you get no results. If you take a little bit of action, you get a little bit of results. If you take massive action, you get massive results. So To me, if you're starting a business and you think, well, do we do trade shows? Do we do online marketing? Do we use LinkedIn? Do we use Facebook? Do we go to meetings at social meetings like maybe the Chamber of Commerce or BNIs or those things? To me, just do everything. You just don't know. The more you do and the more no's you get, the more yeses you get. My goal was to get so many no's every week because I knew the more no's I got, the more yeses I got.
That's a skill in itself to handling rejection. What sort of skills did you teach yourself about how to handle those no's before you got those yeses?
Well, I always think it's the same. For me, it's a 1 in 3 rule. If you talk to 10 people, 3 will seriously listen to you and 1 may take action. I didn't focus. It didn't depress me. It was just part of the journey to success. You've got to go through those. If you want to run a marathon, you've got to go through those pain barriers. If you want to be a champion, it doesn't matter in anything that you do. If you want to be a champion, you've got to go through those pain barriers. And each time, it's like going to the gym, I suppose. If you've not been to the gym for a while and you start going to the gym and you start lifting weights, you go home that night and your arms are ache and your legs are ache and your back are ache. And then you force yourself to go again a couple of days later when you've had time to recuperate and it's not so bad, the pain afterwards. And then, you go again the 3rd time in the week and all of a sudden you think, oh, well, this is not so bad. And then the next week, you want to go to the gym, you enjoy it, but in the beginning it's painful. And I think it's the same as getting those no's. In the beginning it's painful, but once you get in a rhythm and you know that if you get 10 no's in a week, you're going to get 3 yeses. Hey, let's get those no's. I've lived my life by a short 2-word saying, which is, if it is to be, it is up to me. So, you've got to get the no's. You're not going to get all yeses in anything that you do.
You mentioned Zig Ziglar as one of the inspiring people. Who else has inspired you along the way?
Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, Wayne Dwyer, Anthony Robbins. I mean, there's many. I've got a couple of bookcases that back then it was tape cassettes. I've got probably about 50 different tape cassettes from different people. I've got maybe 150 books on personal development, time management, goal setting, overcoming objections, all those kind of things. I think Alan Pease is very good. He was somebody that I learned a lot from. Yeah, lots of different people, really.
And when you look at Brian Tracy, listening to him on the tapes, or Jim Rohn, what sort of lessons did these people teach you at the time?
I think sometimes if you listen to these tapes or if you read a book, you might just get one thing out of it. But, that one thing is, it's a golden nugget or a diamond. So I think one of the things I got from Jim Rohn was a thing called Sinaloa. That taught me about numbers, really. Sinaloa is safety in numbers and the law of averages. And I think I really got to understand that maybe the 2nd or 3rd time that I listened to the audio. And that's where I got to this, well, I've got to speak to, 14, 15 people a day to get 2 or 3 yeses kind of thing. And, it is safety in numbers and the law of averages. Numbers never lie. They are what they are.
And some of these books are now several decades old, and you say you were listening to tapes. How relevant would you say these people are, or those kind of audio tracks are today, in today's world?
Massively, yeah. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, that was a great book at the time when I read it. I used to spend a lot of time in the car. So, my philosophy was, when I was in the car, that was like my university. So I was constantly listening, probably for 2 or 3 years. When I say this 2 or 3 years, maybe some people think that I was obsessed or I was brainwashed. But, if I'm going to be brainwashed to become better, to set goals, to help others, to grow, then I don't mind being brainwashed. I'm not being brainwashed to do something that's detrimental to people. So for probably 2 or 3 years, whenever I was in the car, I didn't listen to the radio. I just listened to personal development stuff all the time. At home, again, I think it was Brian Tracy or maybe Zig Ziglar that said, if you can just read for half an hour a day, it's a small amount of time. But if you just read half an hour a day, every day, you'll read a book probably a week. So in a year, you could read 52 books. And I think I did that. I read half an hour, whether it be first thing in the morning or last thing at night. It's like they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's not an apple every other day. It's not an apple 3 times a week, it's an apple a day. And if you read personal development books and you're prepared to do it for a couple of years, just half an hour a day, you'll go through maybe 50 to 100 books from some of the people that really understand this stuff.
And for anyone starting out today, is there any particular book or person you would advise them to go to first or to study first?
You know, if they're coming straight out of school, it might be different. But if somebody's kind of been out of school or university or college for a while, I think there's a few books that made a big impact on me. One of them is called Rhinoceros Success, and that's a brilliant book. It talks about these rhinos that are very rare and these cows, and there's lots of them. It's very basic, got pictures in it. It's probably an hour's read. It made a big impact on me. I think Being Happy, that's a great personal development book. It's an Australian author, and he puts everything into in a nutshell kind of thing. He rounds every paragraph out. And again, there's images in that, because I think pictures speak 1,000 words. So in both those books, they're really good, basic personal development books. I think there's Eat That Frog. You know, that's a great book. You know, get the things out the way. And that's one of the skills as well as being successful. I think get the things that you don't like doing, get them out of the way at the beginning of the day. Then you can really look forward to the rest of your day with a positive mind, rather than, you know, if you've got a couple of phone calls that you don't want to make and leaving them to the end of the day. They're always there in your subconscious all day long, and you're not performing probably at your best. So I always do the things that I'm not looking forward to, let's put it that way, at the beginning of the day. I don't have problems either. I have challenges, and challenges are there to overcome. So I never will have a problem. I only have challenges. I think that's a good mindset to have.
So these are the successful people you've studied over the years. What have you picked up from business, and how do businesses succeed?
I think it's the same, a lot of the same stuff really, going the extra mile. You know, it's the little things, you know, having a donut Friday when it's payday and just bringing all donuts in so the staff know that day they're going to get paid. Taking the staff out and going out for lunch with them and looking after your people, focusing on the small things, you know, it's that, I know I say 1 inch, I suppose it should be a centimetre, that can make all the difference, you know. So I have a thing about, it's called the 3 H's: happiness, harmony and health. Those are the 3 most important things in life. And if you've got happiness, harmony and health in a business and your team, then you're going to have a successful business. The money will come, and the customers and the rewards, if you've got that happiness, harmony and health.
What can our listeners or readers do today that will help them achieve more?
I think, you know, set your goals. You know, if you want to change your business, or if you're starting a business, or you want to increase the size, you know, just set your targets and goals. I think sometimes if you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll never get started. I think that's one of the things that I learned as well. You know, you've got to start with what you have, and the tools will come along as you develop and you grow. You'll find different ways. I think the other thing as well, you can only do so much for people. It's a balance. I learned at a very early age as well, if you give a man a crutch, you'll make him a cripple. So, you know, help people. And, you know, sometimes if people are lazy and they want you to do it for them, you know, that's not going to help them grow, really. So there is a fine balance there.
Great. So if I can ask you a few final questions, Geoff, if I may?
Yeah, of course.
What would you say is your most proactive time of day?
It used to be night time, but not anymore, because I go to bed earlier. I wouldn't say that I have a most productive. I think I'm pretty productive all the time, really.
Pretty consistent throughout the day.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Would you have a least proactive time of day?
Probably when I was younger. I'm in my 60s now, but when I was younger, probably the mornings, because I used to work very late. Whereas probably now I want to relax in the evening. So probably, I don't work 17 hours a day anymore, but I did when I was building the businesses. It wasn't work to me, you know, I enjoyed it. It was a pleasure. It was, once you've got a business and you're getting it on a roll, it's fantastic. Yeah.
And what sort of advice would you give for anyone who's wanting to overcome that procrastination and actually get on with things.
That's probably the biggest challenge for people. Read the book, Eat That Frog, I think. That's a good book to start with. But I used to talk to people about the 10-ton phone, because sometimes it's very difficult for people to pick up the phone. It's hard, because that's a lot of the reasons why people procrastinate. But it's something you've just got to overcome. That you've just got to do it and just realize that you're going to get no's, and that's all it is, really, people's fear of rejection. But that's okay. Every champion has had rejection at some point on their way to becoming a champion, and to become a champion in business, that's just part of the process. So you've just got to use a diary, put things in your diary, and if you don't do it that day, have a Geoff 1 and a Geoff 2, and give yourself a kick up the backside if you procrastinate, and give yourself a bit of a bad time, but then give yourself a pat on the back when you don't procrastinate and you do the things that you say you're going to do, and treat yourself.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Geoff, for being with us on 12 Scholars. Some really interesting insights that we can all take, certainly I'll be taking back with me, and we wish you all the success for all the years to come.
Thank you, and thanks for asking me on board, and I hope this helps. Even if it helps one or two people, then that will be fantastic. Hopefully it'll help more.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Geoff.
Thank you.
That was Geoff Liberman, one of those people who just talks common sense. In this episode, we learned more about being proactive and how you can become more successful by studying successful people. Geoff's advice is to protect your subconscious mind by learning how to handle rejection and negative talk. Take massive action if you want to see massive results. Go the extra mile for other people, as what goes around comes around. Start reading half an hour a day, every day. And Geoff left us with his saying, if it is to be, it's up to me. To learn more about Geoff and meet other inspiring people, visit our website at 12scholars.com and join a tribe dedicated to personal development. That was a 12 Scholars podcast. If you liked the episode, be sure to tell one of your friends. My name is Bob, and I look forward to joining you next time.